Oh yeah, that was a tough podcast.
He
too.
brought it back again. I like almost cried right there during that moment of silence.
Oh, me too. Man. It's good. This is going to be a rough day. When honestly, dude, when we get off this podcast, that's when he and I always start texting. It's going to be freaking rough this afternoon.
Wow. I mean, boy, that's really amazing. It was shocking how we started that last segment, and I was not expecting that at all.
Me either, dude.
As you weren't either.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought this so many times throughout my life that it seems like a kid is being born every other day. We always know somebody's having a kid, and yet death seems so infrequent. We actually encounter death so seldom. It's a big, big deal, And so it's hard to say how to deal with it, And it's really important that we talk about this on the show because it's over 50 starting over. This is what we're going to start dealing with a lot. So, and people don't handle it well in this country, as we talked about.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
It's well, at the same time, it's a part of life, and we can look at it a number of different ways. I remember, my whole thing is I didn't become a Christian until I was 19 years old, but my brother Scott, I remember when we were very little kids. I don't know what happened, but my brother suddenly became very concerned that he was going to die. And we were really little at the time. And I think it had something to do with my dad. He'd always have some kind of, don't you ever go out in the street because you'll get hit by a car and we'll never see you again. This is how he would talk to us, and then never. Then you're going to be in the ground and it's going to be cold and the worms are going to eat you. Like stuff like that, why would you tell us that? And so
because they only has to tell you once.
Yeah, so my brother freaks out about it. Like, I'm going to die and I'm going to be in the ground and the worms are going to eat me. And so, of course, I wasn't even thinking about it, really. My dad would say that I'd be concerned for a few minutes and then it would be over. But my brother wouldn't get over it. And then I started to panic about, I'm going to die too. And so we came to our mother. Dad was at work, so now we can talk. He's gone. Hey, Mom, what's up with this death thing? Are we going to die? I mean, I'm kind of scared. And she goes, well, and what she said after that was terrible. It would. I'm sorry. That did not help me. She started talking about how, sort of like what you're saying, the Asian population, they have no fear of death. And, it's just one thing to another. I didn't care about what the Asians thought. Well, they can die and not be afraid, but I'm going to die. That's a different thing. And you didn't give me any indication of what was going to happen. You just said, what kind of answer is that? And that's the only answer we got. And it was just like, okay, now go back to sleep. Okay. And so until that's really it, is that we live in we say, I grew up, and if anybody were to ask me, what religion are you? I would just say I was Christian, but I wasn't. Because everyone just says that, right? And but this whole death thing, man, that was kind of messing me up. And we have, as a society, as you said, we really don't do a good job of being able to
stop talking about this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Stop talking about that.
We're terrible about talking about this.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank God, once I became a Christian and really started to deal with this, and my mom, when my dad died, I'll never forget one of the things she told me is that, if your dad had an opportunity to come back today, he wouldn't.
Right.
Because it's so great in heaven.
Agreed.
And she goes, they don't call it heaven for nothing.
It's again, the near-death experiences, people, they all say the same thing, a complete overwhelming feeling of unconditional love. And that's what I believe God in heaven is pure unconditional love. And you can
that's what the Bible says.
Try to imagine it, because there's brief moments in time when we kind of feel a whole bunch of that. Like when you get overwhelmed at church and you start crying, when we witness acts of selflessness. I do the same thing. Those are the things that make me cry every time. Acts of selflessness, because that's unconditional love. That's the closest that we get to God in heaven. And that, those brief moments, we feel it down here. That's why we have such an affinity for dogs, because they're unconditional love. They're little pieces of heaven.
So I live on this street that's pretty busy, and there are accidents that I hear out there pretty, not infrequently, and sometimes we'll just hear some kind of god awful sound, and I'm telling you, I don't even think about it. I'm up on my feet running out there, and there's been several times now where I've had to help people get out of the car.
Oh my God.
Call an ambulance. Wow. Or tell people that everything was going to be okay until the police got there. I've seen some terrible injuries out there, just people crying and everything. But the thing is, Barry, is that I don't even think about it. It's like suddenly I'm there, like, oh, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be touching. Do you know what I mean?
There should be plenty of homeless people right there.
Yeah, they're not, In fact, it seems like we live in a world where if somebody yells out help, very few people will turn and look and do anything, right? I can't help myself. If somebody says help, I'm there. But we've lived in that world for some time. I remember one time I was in a restaurant, and this woman suddenly blurts out, "Somebody help me!" And her husband was slumped over into her lap, and no one moved except for me. I ran over that. I didn't know what to do. But it turned out she needed me to reach into his pocket to get his nitrogen tablets out of the little vial in his pocket and put it in his mouth. And I did. Yeah. And I had to yell, call an ambulance. Like, why do you have to yell that when this is happening?
People are probably pulling out their phones to take video at this point.
Yeah, this was before everybody had a camera phone, but I just remember, like, this is a similar experience I've seen over and over and over again, where I can't help myself. I just jump up and start moving. But I noticed that I'm the only one almost every time. Why is that happening?
Well, I'll tell you, I think a big part of it is because we live in such a
litigious society.
Well, litigious would mean that you're going to get sued, maybe, right? Yes, but no, scams. Like, it would not surprise me one bit if you were going to tell me in that story. So I go over there to help her, and all of a sudden they, pulling my wallet out of my pocket or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. That didn't cross my mind, but boy, now I'm jaded. I was kidding, but we had a situation where a guy, Anne-Marie and I were in a line of cars, and there was a bicycle, and the cars were trying to get around the bicycle and everything. And by the time there was one car in front of us, the guy wrecks right there on the curb, and he looked like he hit his head, and he wasn't getting up. And again, no one like stopped to get out or anything like that, except for me. Anne-Marie has the same spirit. She's like pulls over and everything, and I jump out of the car and I run over. His head is bleeding. He's on the ground, and I'm like, "Hey man, I'm here to help you." And I put my hand down to help him up and everything. And he just looks at me. And he kind of like is bewildered and all. And I'm like, "Come on, man." I just grab him by the hand. And I pull him up. He was like maybe 100 pounds. I almost threw him over on the other side.
What if he had a broken bone?
Well, it would have been a lot worse, but he didn't look like he had a broken bone. It looked like his head was bleeding, and he was in the street, and traffic was right there. And he needed to be out of the street. And so I put, "You all right?" We got him something for his head and everything. I'm like, "Should I call an ambulance?" He didn't want me to do that. And so then we left, and I remembered as we were driving away, Anne-Marie goes, "Yeah, you weren't wearing your mask." And I was like, that's why the guy didn't want me to touch him.
In California, that's probably the case.
Like,
right.
I'm dying.
I'd rather get hit by this car.
Don't touch me.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Crazy stuff, man.
I hear a lawnmower should probably close the windows.
Oh man, you're in trouble now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I really am with these allergies and stuff.
Right.
We did not. I'm gonna sneeze again. We didn't talk about any current events or anything. And you know what, dude? I haven't even looked at my notes.
Me neither. You threw in Erby, and that changed our trajectory.
And that was worthwhile for sure.
What we needed to do for sure.
Yeah.
There are some interesting things that are in current events right now. I think you may have seen the one about the moratorium on evictions.
Oh yeah, I got it in my notes too. I got a ton
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I discussed because well, there's a lot of things. It's a complicated matter, but what disgusts me the most is this was all the Democrats just dropping the ball, that they knew for over a month that they were supposed to appeal to Congress and have Congress rule on this. That they were told that is the proper procedure at this point,
which it is,
and they totally dropped the ball on it, and all of a sudden didn't think about it until the midnight hour. Now Pelosi starts blaming, putting it on the Biden administration that they have to do something when it was really all their fault to begin with. And the Biden administration's going back and putting it on Pelosi. So at the end of the day, they don't care a damn. They don't give a damn about these 15 million people that are going to go homeless. And not to mention, here's the other thing too, is there was $49 million appropriated to these major cities to give rent relief to both the renters and the rentees, and something like only $3 billion of it actually got distributed by the local municipalities.
Okay,
what the hell is going on there?
That is a great question.
All of this, our government is so corrupt. It's so big, convoluted, and corrupt. They can't get anything done, and they have no morals whatsoever. They don't care about that. They want to go on vacation. Oh, August is our vacation time, and that's all they care about. That's all they're thinking about. Well, so you tell me, you got me all riled up about this.
No, I love that you're riled up about it, because I am too, and I think this is a terrible way to go. So let me just, you gave me a lot of ammunition here. So I agree. What is happening? They have the stimulus money, and of course those are our tax dollars.
Yes.
And they're real good at saying, okay, we're going to give this money out, but they're not really good at getting it into the right places.
Exactly.
And that's not just now with COVID, but that's a federal government problem that we've had for quite some time. We've seen this before, where bailouts happen, but then there's no accountability of what happens to the money after it's been released. And I'm telling you, I think that there are nefarious people out there that know exactly where that money is going, and it's not going to where it's supposed to go. We see this here in California with the homeless crisis.
Oh, yeah.
And all the money we're being taxed to provide actually houses for the homeless, but we haven't seen any of these houses. Where is that money going? We don't know where the money is going. They're not good at being accountable.
No.
As far as, and not only are they not good at being accountable for the money, they're terrible at making decisions and doing things economically. They're actually the worst.
They're the worst. It's kind of like they're really good for if they want to get a casino passed or a lottery passed or something that will generate just billions of dollars in revenue. They'll say it's for education. All day long, they'll say it's for education, and not a penny ever goes to it.
Well, it's like the Ohio lottery. That was supposed to be a big thing in education. And, let's do, I don't know. What is the Ohio lottery really doing? I don't know. It's just no accountability, and shame on us, because we're not actually tracking it. Well, okay, so we let them do these things, but we forget all about it, and it's not in the news anymore. And that's the benefit to these big social justice programs, is they're in the news. It's a big deal. They get their billions of dollars, and then we just forget about it and move on. And that's how the problems actually happen. And we have to have vigilance on our self-government means that we have to have vigilance on the government. And when we stop paying attention to it, and a lot of it is the press, we rely on them to go behind the scenes and show us what's happening. When we don't get the news anymore, when we stop paying attention to the news, then they can get away with anything.
And look at the news that we're getting today, mainstream media. But here's kind of the problem, Merle, is everything's just too big. It seems like it's a natural life cycle. So we have way too many people in the world and in this country now. So there's no accountability. So everybody says, I don't need to vote. They'll take care of it. I don't need to pay attention to this. They'll take care of it. And our government's so big, they just passed that. We just had a conversation about people pointing fingers at each other while they're not doing anything except looking forward to vacation. It's kind of like a small rural town. Everybody's kind of accountable because everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows each other kind of. Yeah. So there's way more accountability. You get into a big city, you're a number. Nothing more than a number. So there's no accountability. That's why you have so much more crime. Everybody's getting away. Here's the lawnmower. Hold on a second. Okay. I'm going to shut the windows.
Okay.
And that's why our equipment is really good.
I agree.
You don't hear all that stuff. That podcast I've been producing. God, I'm going to sneeze again. Biz Chat, Ohio. Excuse me, hay fever bad today.
Man.
But I've had them use headphones for the season and wanted to see, well, okay, if this goes well, if you're all on board and we do a season 2, I'm going to recommend our equipment. And it looks like we're going to do that. So I'm very happy.
Good. That sounds great.
Yeah. You know what else? We just recorded an outro for them because they have a lot of, got to give credit to different organizations and stuff like that. And they were having a hard time segueing out of their guest and into that. They'd say thank you like 40 times. And I had to edit all this.
That's
so we decided to do an outro, and it made me think,
that's cool.
Yeah, you and I could do a pre-recorded intro and outro possibly. Maybe we should, where we quickly... Because here's the thing, as an avid podcast listener, I know what podcasts have an intro and stuff, and I fast forward to it. But if you're a first-time listener, it could be important. Like, we should describe in like 10 seconds what our show is, what to expect.
Yeah. I kind of like that.
Yeah, maybe we should do that.
Now. Merle and Barry and Merle.
But I hadn't exactly nailed down the verbiage as to what to say, because we do things that we always try to open the show with stuff that is helpful for people over 50,
right.
And then we always do some current events. We do we like to end with the lighter stuff on a positive note. So there's that, but how do you say that in a riveting way?
I'm not really sure. Well, we'll have to noodle on that because I think it's important. Hey, I wanted to get back to this moratorium, and really the reason I want to ask you about this, Barry, is because you're a person that has a home that you use for Airbnb. And so you kind of have this, you've made this huge investment in your home. And I think about, landlords, they make huge investments in their home, and it's a business that they have. And here's the federal government saying to this person that you can't collect money on your investment. And also,
that hits me right between the eyes, dude.
Well, let me just continue. There's protection for the person that's renting, but no protection for the landlord.
Well,
let me just say this, because I want to just throw this out here. So if that landlord doesn't collect month after month after month, they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage. And wouldn't they lose their home as a result of this?
Well, that's exactly right. It's a very good point. And this sounds so partisan, but because I was going to say Democrats, I'm going to say politicians. I'm constantly hearing these politicians speak as if landlords and business owners, small business owners, are amongst the super rich.
Yeah.
And
I hear
all
that too.
barely getting by. And so that really, they're so out of touch. Every week I get more and more disgusted with how stupid our government is, and corrupt and self-centered, looking out for only their interests, and special interest groups who are just greasing their palms, of course. But I did hear that part of that, I said 49 billion in federal housing aid that went to the states. It's 47 billion. It's a lot of freaking money. But I heard that is supposed to be allocated to both renters and rentees. But at the same time, it's only $5,000 per. And in New York, that's not going to go very far. So that's another case of where, and it's constantly the case, where our federal government is just too far reaching. It's always trying, $15 minimum wage across the board. Well, damn it. That means an entirely different thing in Iowa than it does in New York or California.
It really does. Yes.
That kind of stuff should stay at state so much. Almost everything should stay at a local level.
Well, Barry, you're preaching the Constitution right now, because the 9th and 10th Amendment are saying exactly what you're saying right now. And just to paraphrase, it's saying that anything that's not enumerated in this Constitution is the right of the state and local government, or to the people. And so this moratorium on rent is not enumerated in the Constitution. It's unconstitutional for the federal government to put that on anybody. And the crazy part about that is that when Joe Biden was questioned about this, he said that he thought that before this is litigated, that the money that you're talking about would have a chance to be allocated to the people, and it would be a moot point at that time. So if you paraphrase that, what he's saying is, I know it's unconstitutional. We're going to do this anyway because we have to do it in lieu of getting this money out. Well, look, you took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution. And when you don't do that and you break the law on purpose, that's actually an impeachable offense, Barry. And what you're doing really is you're stealing the ability for a business owner to actually get a return on their investment, and you put them in peril possibly with their credit, and they could have their house repossessed in the meantime.
Well, let's see where this goes, dude, because we're going to see some real life ramifications real soon. Everything going on is not sustainable.
Listen though, Barry, your right to property is central to our rights as American citizens. And these people like yourself have made a tremendous life investment into this property that it seems like our federal government feels that they have the liberty to toy around with at your expense. And I think that is tyranny.
Oh, I agree. I don't know, Merle. We kind of get to it. We're always
it's a slippery slope. That's
everything's a slippery. We're always going to get to this point of we follow this rabbit hole far enough, and we're both going to be like, we got to tear it down. We got to start all over. We have to just tear this government down and start over. And now we're not far away from the people on the far left that also want to tear.
Well, you see, I was about to say the same thing. Is that I have this article that is really speaking to that exact thing. And you brought up a person that I think was going to New York University, NYU, and they were saying this is just like China's Cultural Revolution.
Oh, Yeonmi Parks, that she was raised in North Korea, the fascist state of North Korea.
Right.
Then she went to China, got sold into sex slavery, and then her and her mother found their way to South Korea, where she got educated, and they are hyper vigilant about education in South Korea. So she got this, and she was hyper vigilant about it. So she got this really incredible education in South Korea, then came to America to go to university, Columbia. And she said, do not go. It is a complete waste of time. It's completely infiltrated with wokeism, and that's all you're going to learn. And they're going to ask you your pronouns and stuff. She's like, what are you talking about? What are you people? And she told Jordan Peterson that she's would tell anybody, do not go to university. You'd be better off getting self-educated or taking like a tutelage, internship of some sort, and getting educated that way. And Jordan Peterson just had a special podcast episode last week where he took bites from Yemeni Park's podcast along with several other professors where they're all saying the same thing, that the colleges are just completely hopeless now. And he's hoping to save them. He's so dismayed by this. He's a
I am too.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I totally,
No. This plays right in. So this is an article that I got out of the Epic Times. It says CRT shares the same ideology as China's Cultural Revolution. Chinese American warned. So the Heritage Action for America, it's a partner organization of the Heritage Foundation, hosted a panel discussion on critical race theory in Georgetown, Delaware on July 29th. There was a host of speakers there. One of them was Jonathan Butcher. He's the senior policy analyst for the Heritage Foundation, and he talked about the history of CRT and what it's all about. And he talked about how it's an offshoot of critical theory from the neo-Marxist Frankfurt School, and it's built upon Karl Marx's ideas and has slowly and methodically worked its way into American society. Well, they had a keynote speaker there by the name of Shi Van Fleet, and she told the audience that America's starting to feel like communist China during the Cultural Revolution, a socio-political movement that occurred during between 66 and 76 under Mao Zedong. She lived there during that time, and she said, we've been seeing that America is going the wrong direction in reference to CRT. I'm just going to read this to you. Van Fleet was attending elementary school as a first grader when the Cultural Revolution began. And after she completed her education, the Chinese Communist Party forced her and other young adults to work in the countryside for 3 years. After the panel discussion, Van Fleet told the Epoch Times, it's the same tactic. It's Marx's tactic. Yeah. So what they do is to create chaos. As Mao said, when the worst chaos emerges, that is when the greatest control can be achieved. They want to create chaos so that they can overthrow the existing system. Cancel culture is the same, because what people want to do here is to overthrow the American founding principles, just like in China, to overthrow the traditional culture and our civilization. I did not really want to go public. This is difficult for the Chinese. I'll tell you more on that in a minute. Most of us would rather be quiet, but now I feel like it's really not about me. It's about America. Let me just continue. She says, I want Americans to know what happened. What's happening today is communism taking over. She says she realized that today's woke revolution driven by CRT has a twin brother, the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which derived from Mao's class conflict theory, CCT. Yeah. The grandfather of CRT is CCT, and CCT, it's the same guy, Karl Marx, and the ideology is cultural Marxism. She goes on, but I mean, these are dire warnings about the things that are happening right now. And the people that that we should be listening to the most are the people that have experienced this in other countries, and they know the telltale signs. And this is, as I've said, and you and I have agreed, this is a slippery slope. Yep. If you start to, and what I mean by that is we start to go down this trail, and at some point, and it seems like we're almost there, there is no turning back.
Oh, I know.
You cannot turn the clock back on this. And this is why I think it's so important that you and I talk about this and get this kind of information out to people.
I agree with everything that you just read. And it's so obvious to me that it's infuriating. It's frustrating because people that don't delve a little bit deeper than the mainstream media fall for this, because it's so seductive to everybody's pointing fingers. Everybody's a racist except for the person that's pointing a finger at somebody else, calling them a racist. Okay. So, and this happened all of a sudden. We just had a 2-term black president, but now all of a sudden everybody's racist. You have to point your finger. I had this happen just a couple of days ago on Facebook. I actually posted, so I was frustrated about the Cleveland Indians changing their name to the Guardians. And I posted, that. Yeah. And I had the same friend once again basically call me a racist.
Well, it was pretty horrible the way that she did it, because she used such a condescending beginning to her.
And I never replied to it.
Anne-Marie did.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was just because we were talking about it. And anyway, but what she went into was first she says, "Aren't you so sweet?"
Yeah.
And then she
supposed to do the emotional thing. I'm not.
Yeah, and first off, like, if as a man, and I know this was a woman that said this, as a man, if you were to start out your sentence like that to a woman that you felt had said something that wasn't intelligent, I think that she would be insulted by that. But then she goes into the fact that you really don't have a right to have an opinion because you really don't follow baseball that closely. She says, I didn't know that you really followed it that closely so that you would care about it.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. So you don't have the right to have an opinion because you're not the biggest baseball fan in Cleveland? That didn't make any sense. But then
none of that made any sense.
But then she goes into lesson number 1. First off, when somebody gives you an unsolicited lesson, that's never going to be a good thing. She goes into her woke history diatribe of how Indians were slaughtered by the settlers, and that calling them Indians is derogatory, and that it's an insult to call them Indians. Well, here's something interesting that I found as I thought about this is I looked up this article. It says Cleveland Indians name change hailed by Native American groups, because I was like, what Indians are angry about being called Indians? And here's one. This guy he says it's supposed to represent us, but it's a caricature of us, of indigenous people, and that's not acceptable. Jeff Pierce, executive director of the American Indian Education Center, said, wait a second. He says it was a harmful name because when people are grouped together as a character, it's dehumanizing to the group of people it represents. Then he goes on to say that they took the caricature out, but he still didn't like the name. Oh, Pierce also serves as a spokesman for the Cleveland, Ohio American Indian Movement. Interesting. So he serves as the spokesman for the Cleveland, Ohio American Indian Movement, and he's also the executive director of the American Indian Education Center. Man,
oh my God.
He's going to have to change the name of those 2 organizations.
He's got a lot of work on his hands.
He got a lot of splaining to do there, Jeff Pierce.
No, I just I responded so little to any of that because it's like, well, first of all, this is what you get for going on Facebook. But what true. Bothers me about Facebook in general is that these people think that they're policing it to make it a safe place for their ideology. And so I get frustrated by that. But at the same time, I know the best response is no response. It's to that person, I've never responded to any of these things. Other people can't, whatever. It's not worthy. It's just not worthy. It's so beyond ridiculousness.
Well,
the same person that ridiculed us when I put up a testimonial to our podcast that said we were smart. Same person.
Well, it sounds like a very unhappy person.
Somewhat too much time on.
And the other thing she said was, why don't you tell us the things that you love about Indians? Like, okay,
I don't think you read
can't
that.
Think of anything that you love about it. Was so condescending and it was so self-righteous. And it was such woke ideology. I mean, like, as if the Indians here in this country were just the friendly, benevolent people that were just, you know, they didn't want, they wouldn't harm a fly. And here we just, the bad settlers came in here and all this kind of stuff.
And this is once again, oh, geez.
It's woke history is what it is, because that's exactly not what happened.
To your point a few minutes ago, it's kind of like Yemeni Parks was making the comparison about how when the authoritarian regime came into North Korea, all of a sudden the landowners from generations ago, their entire family was punished for generations to come,
right?
Which is exactly what we're trying to do now, talking about the Indians of a few hundred years ago and the slavery of a couple hundred years ago and stuff like that. And we're so, you know, it's always that. How about, you know, it's always how you want to frame things, but it's this point of going back to generations where there's no responsibility on any of our parts. What happens today is what we're responsible for.
Yeah, let me just read a little bit more of that article that the She Van Fleet was talking about, the Cultural Revolution. She said that Mao also ordered these Red Guards to destroy the four olds: old ideas, old culture, old customs, and old habits. They tore down Buddhist statues, destroyed temples, raided homes, and destroyed personal property such as unique furniture and or antique furniture and family heirlooms. Mao's Red Guard also changed street names, store names, school names, personal names. That's what she says. That's what the cancel culture is. Yep. And they want to destroy the entire Western civilization, Christianity, and the American founding principles. They are the same thing. This is she says that what the United States is experiencing is a culture war, cultural Marxism and American ideals. There's no common ground. We have to fight this war and win it to preserve America. Well, see, the history lesson that your friend actually gave you had no basis in fact. Mm-hmm. And so they have to, we've seen them tearing down statues, the Civil War statues, burning flags, tearing up the Confederate flag, all this kind of stuff, burning books, banning books in schools. This is what Mao Zedong did. This is the four olds, the old ideas, the old culture, the old customs, the old habits. This is how they do it every single time. This is the DNA of communism. And what we saw last century was 100 million murders under the banner of communism. Mm-hmm. It always ends up the same. It's never different. And we're going down that slope. And this is when we take a look at the Cleveland Indians and, we're going to change it to the Guardians. And you can't say Indian anymore. Well, Indians call themselves Indians. They're on all of their business names. So what it's
always
here?
These white people. I always think of that cartoon I told you about that I saw, this illustration. It's so funny that there's this black woman, she's going, but I don't feel up. And this little girl got a hand up to her mouth going, I'll tell you when you were oppressed or not.
Yeah. I got another one that says the black guy is saying, I'm not oppressed, and he's wearing a business suit and everything. And there's this hippie looking white guy, and he goes, yes, you are. Yep. I just think that's really funny to me.
It is funny. It is funny.
If it wasn't so ugly, it would be hilarious.
It's so infiltrated into our businesses and stuff. They're giving these woke seminars to their workers. Big businesses are doing this to their management. They're making them take woke classes.
You know what? I just had to take an HR thing just recently, and it was specific to the state of California. And boy, there was a boatload of woke ideology in this as far as the alternative lifestyles and how we're supposed to act towards this. And I mean, seriously, I learned a whole bunch of terminology that I hadn't known before. But why do I have to know all of that in order to be at work? Why not just treat people with the golden rule? Why can't that just be it? Is this treat people the way you want to be treated, and that's it. We don't have to go into all that detail and everything.
Divide us up.
Common sense. Just be nice to people. That's all. Be respectful of people. People have different people, but it was almost like it was telling us in this thing that if you see somebody that's different, go talk to that person and make friends with that person. You need to expand your sphere of influence. You can't just hang out with the same people all the time. Really?
Nobody can be comfortable now.
Yeah.
Everything's a thing.
And so that means this, if I'm different, if I'm the one that's different and people are coming up to me, now I have to think, are they just coming up to me because that's what the training said, is to go to a black guy and talk to him? I don't want friends like that. Who wants to have a friend like that they felt compelled to come over to you because you were in some kind of protected class? That's disgusting. This is why we're having a breakdown of our society and why we can't talk to each other anymore. It's terrible. But I'm glad that you and I get to actually provide an example, a beacon of light for the rest of the world here to see that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, well said, buddy. Do you think we should wrap up?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, I got a lot to do.
Barry, I just want to say this, man. My heart is with you today. Dude, I just love you so much. And I just put you in the God of the universe's hands to just protect you with his joy today, Lord, because really, when you look at it through God's eyes, this should be a day of celebration. Erby had his homecoming today. There was a ticker tape party for him when he got to heaven. All of the angels of heaven rejoiced when he entered into that front door. The red carpet was rolled out for him, and his son was right there. Yes. And all the others that had gone before him were right there too. And it's a glorious day. And I hope you do go to that restaurant at East 55th today and celebrate a great man that lived here that I thank God I had the privilege of getting to know.
Man, I loved what you just said. Thank you so much. I needed that. I needed to hear that. I needed my heart filled with that love. And you're right. This is a day of celebration. And, he got to get reunited with his mom and dad too, who were amazing people. They raised an amazing, amazing man in a tough neighborhood.
They really did.
They really were special people. So, but most of all, he's with Tayson again. And I know that as his eyes were closing, he never looked back for a second. He's great. He's great where he's at.
The Bible says that when you leave this world, that angels will escort you directly to the King of Kings, Jesus Christ, and there will be rejoicing and a party, and he is having his day, and we'll see him again.
All right, I'm going to tell myself I can feel sorry for myself for today, though. But
dude, if you need to talk, I'm here for you.
I love that about you, man, and this makes me appreciate you and Lisa and my brother and Scott. Scott's been on my mind this week a lot. My brother Scott as well. But your brother Scott's been on my mind a lot this week. I just feel like I haven't talked to him forever. And maybe this weekend I'll give him a call.
He seems to be doing pretty good. He's done this weight loss program and he's looking great.
Yeah.
He's dropped about 40 pounds.
Holy.
He's on it like a pit bull on a
keto?
Bone. He's actually working with a coach on this. I don't know what the name of the program is, but it's working. He's been doing it for about 3.5 months now. And so he's been very successful as he looks younger. I could tell that he feels good.
Got to feel a lot better.
Too. Yeah. And when I hug him, there's a lot less of him to hug.
Oh, wow. I got to talk to him. I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. And you're looking good too, man. Are you back to the gym or anything?
So I'm just getting out there, just starting to flex myself again.
Good.
I had a little setback here, but I'm getting better.
Good. What's the state of California like with mandates and whatnot?
It's looking pretty ugly right now. The ugliest thing that's happening is that the city of Los Angeles has a bill that they're considering passing, which is much like what they're doing in New York City right now with the vaccine mandates. If you don't have a vaccination in New York, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to a theater, you can't go really you can't even go to the store, I don't think.
Do you got to show your card? or something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Apparently, you're going to have to show your vaccination card, and they're considering doing that here in Los Angeles. I think they actually did something like that in Denver as well. So we're seeing some pretty strong stuff over here right now.
That's disheartening.
It is.
Yeah, I don't want to talk anymore about that.
I wanted to end on a high note.
Well, I also don't want to get deplatformed by today, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so,
I wanted to end on a high note. I want to just rekindle those prayers that you just sent me and say thank you for that. That means a lot to me, and I'll keep that in mind. Your words the rest of the day. I'm going to
like I said, call me.
I'm going to go to 55th. Thank you.
Yeah, you need to do that, Barry. It's sort of like your trip to Mecca. You know, do that and enjoy it though. Soak it in, and if you cry, it's okay, man.
Thank you.
It's a tribute.
You're the best. I can't imagine my life without you.
I can't imagine mine without you, brother.
All right, buddy.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Have a good weekend.
You too, Barry.